And it's not quite as easy as just to draw a line saying people who carry commercials should be paid a subscription, should not be paid a subscription, and others should. In this country, people who offer services offer in different ways, including advertising support, including subscription, whether it's a newspaper or a TV program, what have you. And each has an individual certain rights to compete the way they want to compete. So as our presentation earlier this evening pointed out, that each of these programmers have different ways of making money and being paid. Very clearly, each one has to be dealt with, each group, whether it's a superstation or a cable programmer or a premium pay service, and that we have to look at those individually. Whether or not we could collect together and make payment or form some form of payment scheme to pay TV services is something we have looked at and we'll continue to look at. Rick, do you have any comments about?
I agree with you, but the gentleman's suggestion, of course, is a good one. We've been looking at this for a number of years. The possibility of creating a pool of money to be made available to programmers that choose not to scramble. It's still under active consideration. On the other hand, the impetus for scrambling that has been made so strong by the cable industry may not be one that can be overcome by payments for unscrambled signals, but it certainly is under active consideration. There are many problems associated with it, particularly problems of enforcement at any level through consumers, dealers, or manufacturers.
Thank you, Dan. Next caller, I believe, is Rick.
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, hello, Rick.
Yes, a couple of things. First, I'd like to make the comment that we should all realize that it's monies paid in by taxpayers which have developed the technology that we all enjoy today. And to turn that technology around and the benefits of it and to shut off the scrambled signal access to TVR owners is just wrong. We're a large body now of tax-paying citizens, and we should have the right to at least access those signals for a charge. I think everyone agrees that premium channels and specialty channels should be able to scramble if they so choose and charge. What really bothers me today, though, is the news that CBS is going to scramble. I live close to Miami, Florida, and I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. If I so choose to watch the network feed going to the Dallas area, should I be discriminated against because of where I live if I have the wherewithal to pick up a network feed who is supported by advertising dollars, and I go out and buy that soap and I buy that car, and they're going to tell me that I can't see that? What's the problem here? Thank you.
Well, if I may do that, Chuck, you probably touched, Rick, on the most difficult of all the questions dealing with networks. We think, in our association position, is that network signals ought to be made available to everyone nationwide. And I think the networks would agree with that they have, over the years, tried to maximize their viewing audience by acquiring more and more affiliates, encouraging affiliates to expand their power. So we're consistent in our goals, and the earth station industry certainly brings more viewers to the networks. Their problems are that their affiliates do not want to lose the local advertising dollar. They don't want people watching the network on satellite as opposed to viewing the local affiliate. I've explained to CBS in particular, we had a long meeting this week in which we talked about that and the fact that most earth station owners do view their local affiliates. They turn off the satellite and watch their local programming. In addition, there are ways to compensate the local affiliates for whatever minor losses there may be, perhaps by increased fees that are paid by the network to the local affiliates, and those increased fees come from additional network audiences that are gained via earth station viewers that live outside of the signal area of the broadcast stations. The question with the football games is a little more difficult, and it's probably one of the most difficult to resolve. And the Congress has already acted in this area and said that the football leagues can black out certain of their games. The networks abide by the schedule, and certainly the commercial tampering with that schedule, for example, by bars and motels, does cause a problem for both the football teams and the networks. I think the problem, however, is so small with respect to the satellite earth station industry that one minor area perhaps can be worked out in some way in negotiations with the network. But Rick, as I said, we've talked to the networks. The two bills that are before the Congress in the Senate and the House that deal with the substantive issues both the Gore bill and the Tozan bill clearly state that network programming should be made available, right of access to network programming should be made available to the American public via home satellite earth stations. And that's why it's so important that we support this legislation.
I'd like to add that we are concerned about the approximate 2 to 3 million Americans who do not have access to any network or any television programming without satellite. And we've indicated to CBS and others that we believe there is some public responsibility to service all Americans, because the networks do serve as the communications thread holding the country together in time of disaster and the need for distribution of news, information, and entertainment. So we have made our views known. We are talking of CBS. It is part of our legislation, and I think if we get behind this legislation, we can help resolve the problems with the networks as well. I believe Dwayne's on next. Hello, Dwayne?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
I was going to say the telephone's faster than the satellite signal. But my question is, I understand that Cinemax and HBO December the 21st is going to go strictly scrambled all the time instead of just part of the time. And at the same article I was reading that Maycom will have their new descrambler out. I'm very curious on how this thing is going to work as far as the mechanism goes, and how are we going to be paid to get HBO and Cinemax, and how is it going to get in, keep from getting to like such as the radars out on the highway, radar detectors, the new radar comes out, the new detectors. What's going to keep us from all this machinery getting obsolete?
That's a lot of questions, Dwayne.
That is. I'd say Taylor Howard will be calling in around 11:15, and I'm sure he'll want to address the issue on the equipment, how fast it will become obsolete, and the addressability of that equipment. I'd say on a practical matter, the way it's supposed to work is that you go to a satellite earth station dealer or a cable operator, you buy a decoder. It is you put it with your system, you install it, or you have your dealer install it, or whomever, and then you subscribe to HBO, and HBO addresses your decoder once a month to allow you to watch HBO. There are some issues concerning the addressability, when it takes place, how it will take place, what happens if you lose a signal. I think I'll leave that to Taylor to answer. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to the mechanics? Or?
A couple of things. One is that the date, I believe, is January 15th that will occur, and the programming availability, if you're outside of a cable area, will be available through an 800 number that HBO will furnish. And if you're inside a cable area, you will have to call your local cable system in order to get the HBO programming. Of course, I shouldn't say of course, I think I should make it clear to everybody that's watching that our association is opposed to that whole program. We think that the proposed price for the HBO programming at $12.95 is substantially higher than what cable customers pay nationwide. Our own surveys reveal that the rate nationwide paid by cable subscribers is under $10. For somebody that buys their own home earth station, we think it ought to be substantially lower for that reason alone. The distribution through cable, many of you that live in cable areas that have a home earth station, for some reason you may have been unsatisfied with your cable service. So requiring you to go back to the cable operator, to have a cable operator's markup on it, to have a cable operator that is intent on keeping subscribers and not having earth stations necessarily in the community, I think is a roundabout way, an unfair way, an uncompetitive way to go about serving this market. And that is addressed in the various bills that are pending before the Senate and the House. And that's what one of the things that people are going to come to Washington to lobby their congressmen and senators and explain the unfairness of that system.
I might add that if you're not able to come to Satellite Earth Station Day, it's crucial that you write your congressman and senator on this legislation. We feel it is the best approach. It's our chance to be heard in Washington and get some legislation to support our position and ensure we have fair access and that there's a free enterprise distribution of what programming does scramble. Thank you very much. I think Vernon's on the line now. Hello, Vernon.
Hello. I'm not going to make it to Washington, I don't think. but from Kentucky, I did talk with legislative assistants to Senators Ford and Mazzola, McConnell of Kentucky, and Representative Mazzola. It's their 8th state. I think we've got a friend in Senator Ford, but Mazzola, the McConnell, I think he's pretty much in the cable camp right now. His aide said that he'd been talking with several of the cable people, and he didn't think our bill had much chance to go anyplace in the Senate. We talked for about 10 minutes. I think I did make some headway with her to explain some things that she had not heard before. So it might be you want to see Senator McConnell on the day next Tuesday and try to work him over pretty good.
That points out a very interesting story. Our dealer board was here a little over half a year ago, and we set up meetings with their congressmen and senators, and those all came out very well except one. Jerry had a meeting with his congressman who wouldn't even talk to him, laughed about him, told him it wasn't even a major issue. Interesting enough, Jerry went back to his home and wrote a very extensive letter saying he'd campaigned for this congressman, that he felt he was rude and was not given the proper time and attention for this issue. And the congressman, within 3 days of that letter, called him up and apologized and told them he was wanting to sit down, that it had been a bad day. And I guess I'm telling you this story because you never want to give up. We have to keep going back. And if you get a negative response, let us know. We'll do what we can. But you also have to keep going back. Send them a letter. Let them know that you're out there. Get your friends and get your people that you work with and others to write in. And after a point in time, they'll start listening. They need to hear from you. You like to add anything, Rick?
Chuck, I think it might be useful for us to let the folks at home know what the legislation is that we're talking about today. There are 3 bills that are presently before the Congress, and if you can gather up a piece of paper and a pencil, I'd like to tell you this. Write them down and write your congressmen and senators. And if you don't know particularly who your congressman is, or perhaps your senator in your particular district you just moved, feel free to call our offices. Call either Space or Brown and Finn, and we'll let you know. The bills are in the House 1769, which calls for a 2-year moratorium on scrambling. And the other bill is 1840 in the House of Representatives. And that bill calls for a right of access to scrambled signals at reasonable prices. The bill in the Senate, which also calls for a right of access at reasonable prices, is Bill 1618. 1618 was introduced very recently by Senator Al Gore from Tennessee. Senator Thad Cochran and Senator Laxalt are co-sponsors of that bill in the Senate. I'm very happy to tell you, because of the very hard work of all of you out there, that we have now approximately 40 co-sponsors on each of the 2 bills in the House. The Judd Gregg Bill, 769, and the Tozan Bill, H.R. 1840. Our next caller, I think, is
Dick.
Dick.
Hello, Dick.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Fine, how are you?
Pretty good. You briefly touched on my comment, of the question before the last one, regarding the service of the cable companies, and so much of this information has been addressed to the folks out there in places like Montana and Wyoming that don't have cable service and have no chance of getting it. But I think one of the other, and probably the growing area where satellite dishes are sprouting up, are in cabled areas where people are dissatisfied with the service that they're getting. Either they're not getting enough of the premium channels or the entertainment or the news or the information or whatever they're looking for, or what they are getting and paying for is not being delivered to them, either in a quality manner or in any manner at all. As in my case, one of the reasons why I went to a dish, one of many reasons, is that the service I was getting sometimes just wasn't there. I'd turn it on and there would be snow, or I would turn it on and I'd have a scrambled signal on something I was paying for. And I think that this, I know around where I live around here, this dish is sprouting up, and it's an entirely cabled area. That's my comment. My other thing is the question. Knowing how slow Congress moves, and we're coming up on January 15th, real close here, do we have a proverbial snowball's chance of getting any of these bills through?
Let me comment on your first part briefly. Most of our surveys have indicated that the number one reason people buy satellite earth stations are choice of programming. Whether that's inside or outside the cable franchise area, that is the real number one reason. But you're absolutely right. A lot of the growth that we're seeing within the cable franchise area is also caused by a dissatisfaction with the cable operator. One of the messages that we've given to the subscribers of cable, even though they may never want to buy a satellite earth station, it's in their vested interest that we be successful, because we're the only competition to cable. And unless we are in existence and can compete fairly with the cable company, there's nothing to prevent the cable companies to continue in certain areas giving bad service and at the same time raising their rates. Now, I don't want to mislead you. There are cable companies that give good service and provide reasonable rates. But there is a need for competition in all marketplaces, and this happens to be one in which we are the only other competition. And on the second part of the question, I think, Rick, what would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I would. There's not going to be any legislation by January 15th. Let's not kid anybody at all. There's been over 6,500 bills introduced in the Congress already this year, and I think the enactment of the number of bills is less than 200. The legislative process is a long and difficult one. For example, the resolution of the copyright issues for the cable industry took about 12 years. Resolution of other issues have taken even longer. I don't think it's going to take us that long, but it is going to take us some period of time. We were very fortunate last year. We worked hard, we worked together, we had a great issue, and we were able to get legislation passed in less than a year that clarified the legality of our industry. This legislation has been in the hopper only a few months, and it's going to take hard work, but we're going to do it. It's not going to happen by January 15th. And some of the bad things that happened to us, it's hard to believe this, but it's true, we need those things to happen in order to make our case, to let the Congress know and to let the Senate know that we do have legitimate problems. And the fact that HBO is going to scramble, the fact that CBS is going to scramble, the fact that we're not being treated fairly in those instances is a kind of record you have to build up to get the Congress to act. And I think I can add a little humor to this situation. I was on a panel last week that was basically before a large group of people from the cable industry, and a member of one of the congressional staff that was also on the panel with me said to the audience, President Reagan is really very upset with satellite earth station industry. And you could see the eyes and all the cable people. They were just so happy to hear that, and they couldn't wait to hear why. And I was kind of sitting back and a little upset because I hadn't heard anything like that coming out of the White House. And then the panelists went on to say that there were more letters on Capitol Hill about satellite earth stations than about tax reform. So you're doing a great job out there, but we got to keep doing it, and that's how we're going to win that battle.
And we will hear more about scrambling from Rick and Chuck right after a commercial break that's coming right up. But first, we want to tell you on our 2-hour live program from Washington, D.C. about next week's Satellite Showtime, and Joe Kelch is going to talk about that.
Thank you. Next week we'll be live again. It's a pleasure to bring you tonight's 2-hour special, but next week we'll be here at the usual time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Satellite Showtime will be from Washington for Earth Station Day. One other comment, when you call in, would you please, if you wish, identify what state you're calling from? It sort of helps to locate the problem areas.
Thank you, Joe. And we will be back with more of our live Satellite Showtime right after this.
Luxor, the intelligent satellite system. The top-of-the-line complete satellite system by Luxor. Space-age technology wrapped in a compact, attractive package. The Luxor 9900 system knows where all the satellites are and all about stereo hi-fi sound. All you need to know is what show that you want to watch. Combine it with the premier quality aluminum mesh antennas, and you have an unbeatable package. The antennas that stay in shape and stay on target. 5-year warranty. UPS shippable. Durable baked-on acrylic low-luster finish. The perfect match for the 9900. Luxor, the intelligent satellite system.
Keep those vital satellite components trouble-free with Quick Pro. Protect your LNA motor and actuator from birds and insects. Its flow-through air vents reduce LNA temperature and control moisture. A high-quality soft neoprene cover that works in extreme cold and heat and has the highest infrared, ozone, and ultraviolet ratings. Quick Pro means long life and great protection. To order, call 1-800-821-7384. In Ohio and outside the U.S., call 419-289-2228.
Satellite TV Preview is the best thing next to your satellite dish. With all those programs now at your fingertips, you won't want to miss a thing. Satellite Preview lists over 100 transponders in an easy-to-read weekly grid schedule. It has a daily list of movies, specials, and sports, plus a list of sports by event. Call and subscribe now for only $47 for 52 issues and save $31 off the newsstand price. Or call for a free sample copy. Dealers, we also have a special offer for you. Call 800-826-0735. Visa and MasterCard accepted. Satellite TV Preview, the best thing next to television.
Welcome to the world of satellite TV opportunities, the Marketing Techniques magazine for satellite television that reviews the latest technology and introduces you to people you should know.
Satellite TV Opportunities is the Marketing Techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Call today for your subscription to success, 1-800-922-2812, Satellite TV Opportunities magazine.
Here's a site survey instrument for professional installation. Star King Surveyor sets up in 5 minutes and takes the guesswork out of installations. Star King features pinpoint accuracy, highest quality, non-corrosive hardware, and durability. Star King saves time, money, and needless retrenching. Includes a handy vinyl carrying case and coordinates guides. Just $149 plus $6 shipping handling. Special pricing on 6 or more. Order now. Gilmax. The Trans 10X by Caltronics. This beautifully designed and crafted 10-foot antenna is setting the industry on its ear. With the latest in antenna technology, the Trans 10X has strength, accuracy, and beauty. It features a baked acrylic thermoset black finish and super strength ribs, hub, and rim. You can experience the quality and savings yourself at a price you won't believe. Caltronics means quality, and the Trans 10X lives up to the Caltronics tradition.
And welcome back to our 2-hour special from Washington, Satellite Showtime. Back to Chuck Hewitt.
We have, I think, a little extra here. Taylor Hard's on the line, and I think we'd like to tune in to Taylor. And hello, Taylor.
Hello, Chuck.
Welcome aboard. I'm sorry you can't be here with us.
Well, I am too. It's a good-looking show. I thought things have gone very well, and you've had some good questions so far.
There was one that we felt you could handle. Well, you can talk to any of them, of course, but the one concerning the decoders and how long are they going to last us, how are they going to be used. Would you like to address that one first?
Yes, I really would, because that's a particular bone I have to pick. I really feel that any one of these, and I hit on that in the early part of the show, is that the technology is escalating. It's getting more and more complex, and it's gotten to the point where any of the technology we see now that's so complex is going to be obsolete in a few years because it does not solve that ultimate problem. And that ultimate problem is that you've got to decode at every television set. Not just yours and mine because we're earth station users, but the fact is there are at least 3 times as many people out there right now stealing the premium signal from cable companies as there are earth stations. So to me, that says the technological solution that's proposed, it's a glorious one. Gee, it works beautifully, but it's wrong. It doesn't match what the consumer needs.
Yeah, I believe our numbers are 6 to 8 million people are now stealing from cable. As many as that many?
Yeah, that's right. So what do we do about that? Well, the only thing I know to do is get the technology right. I know from as an engineer that technology is coming along pretty well, and that there are a lot of competitors coming that know how to do the job, that can address not just a few 100,000 homes, but can address 15 million or 30 million homes, or the ultimate, which we need, will be 100 million homes, and can do it very rapidly. So the technological problems go away, but we need time, which gets back to what Rick was saying earlier. We really need support of this legislation. We need support of this legislation to delay us making a mistake and do it right. And my favorite story about that is the Australians were kidding me one time. I was doing some work down in Australia with satellite TV, and they were kidding me. They were saying how bad our television is, and that theirs is wonderful, and that all they had to do was go 10 years without color television to get the right solution. Well, we may be in that boat too. We may have to wait a couple of years to get the scrambling to satisfy the people who do want to get paid. But I think in the meantime, our industry will grow so rapidly, and there will be many new services come. It's the free enterprise solution, as Rick was talking about.
Taylor, I think part of what you're saying is that the cable industry is telling us basically how to clean up our house when they've got a very dirty one. And that's a real problem. They've got a solution for us that doesn't even fit into their own theft of service problem. Isn't that really the thrust of your message?
Well, that's exactly right. It's kind of like a businessman down the street who's in bankruptcy coming in and telling me how to run my business that's successful, and I don't think that's right. It's a good analogy.
Taylor, one other thing, we've heard from time to time on this that we have to have a single standard, and I think the philosophy behind that is, well, the thing's going to cost $395. What would you couldn't possibly have 4 or 5 decoders up there, and of course we are concerned about that, the cost. But is that really true? If we had a very simple, workable, addressable system that was chipsets and receivers, could we get that price down to $15, $25? So the fact that a receiver might have to have 2 or 3 decoders, would that make a difference, or what would be the situation there?
Yeah, that's really the way to do it. Of course, it's a chicken and egg thing. A complex solution like we have right now for $395 decoders is fine as long as there are only a few 100,000 customers. But we're talking about a market of tens of millions of customers. In that case, you do it very differently. And I don't care whether it's BMAC or Orion or Video Cipher. It doesn't make any difference what the encryption standard is. If a manufacturer can get a chipset to put in his receiver, or can get 3 different chipsets that the microprocessor and the receiver can select between, as long as these chipsets are $15 to $25, it doesn't make much difference. And I really think that economy of scale, this very large market, is what's going to drive it.
And ultimately, you believe, of course, that they should be right in the TV set. That way we're addressing every television user, no matter what mechanism he's receiving the signal.
Well, that's right. And I don't see why you or I, as satellite owners, should be treated any differently than someone who's watching cable. We're a consumer, too.
Taylor, any other issues you'd like to address, Earth Station Day, or some of the questions about scrambling and programmers?
Well, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing all of our viewers there at Earth Station Day. It's going to be a great day. Some of us are going to be there 3 or 4 days to do quite a few activities and see as many of the congressmen as we can. From what I see in the activity I've heard going on from Space Headquarters and from Brown and Finn today, it's going to be a tremendous day. We're going to have more antennas in that town than you can shake a stick at. I think it's going to be very exciting for all of us. I hope we all survive.
Thanks, Taylor. I think anyone who doesn't come is going to miss the event of satellite Earth stations. Probably only time in history we'll do this. So I hope everyone does come. And the more dishes, we need more dishes. So if you have a dish and you're within driving distance, bring it along.
Well, and the thing I'd say, and I'll get off the line here and let you guys do it live because you're doing so well tonight, but don't come with a chip on your shoulder, and don't come mad at anybody. You've got to realize that this is a new technology. It's the technology of the present and the future, and we're right. And when you've got right on your side, you can go to your congressman and smile and say, hey, think a little about what the history is going to be and join us right now.
Thanks, Taylor. I assume you meant by doing so well tonight that we haven't done so well other nights, but we'll accept that, and we'll be talking to you probably tomorrow morning.
I've never seen you any other night.
That's true. Thanks, Taylor. I believe Mickey's the next caller. Mickey? Mickey?
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you. I would like to say that if we did not have Earth Station in our area, we would not receive TV. We live in the sandhills of Nebraska, and it's just a long way from any place. And if we didn't have an Earth Station, we wouldn't receive TV. And we just thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, we need for you to let your congressman and your.
I can't hear you.
We need to have your you write your congressman, your senator, and if you can, come to Earth Station Day because
I
you're.
beg your pardon. I can't understand what you're saying.
Do you have your TV on too high? Maybe
yes,
that's the
I
problem.
do.
Maybe you should turn that down a little bit and listen on your telephone.
Okay. Just a moment, please.
A moment here while we have a technical adjustment. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
What I was saying is that I think you're exactly the kind of support we need here in Washington, D.C. If you can't make it to Satellite Earth Station Day, be sure that you and your friends write your congressmen, your senators, let them know. Also, we need them as co-sponsors on the legislation. They need to hear from you. You need to let them know that without satellite earth stations, you cannot possibly be receiving the programming you're receiving. So let them know. Help us out, okay? We'll help you. Can we have the Marcel? Hello, Marcel.
Hello, how are you doing? Let me just mute my television. Number one, I want to compliment you on your show. I think it's fabulous. I've learned more in the last hour and a half than I have listening to a certain radio station for a considerable period of time. But be that as it may, let me address one question that I have and then also a comment. The question is this. I have written to all of my congresspeople and received very favorable replies. I live in North Carolina, in the western part of the state in the mountains, and I get very poor local local television reception, and the cable television company will not run their cable service to me here because I'm way out in the woods. So I made that quite plain to my Congress people. I subscribe to Satellite Orbit magazine, and in their section, Defending Your Viewing Rights, Part 3, they made reference to the fact that the cable industry has a friend on the Energy and Science Subcommittee that will be reviewing our particular House rule that we are interested in. This gentleman is Mr. Timothy Worth, and he categorically came out and stated that he would do everything in his power to make sure that these bills never got to subcommittee. Now that, to me, is kind of a short circuit to our efforts of trying to protect our viewing rights. That's my question. My comment is I'm an Englishman by birth, and as I grew up in England, we had a government tax on television sets. In other words, anybody that wished to view the BBC, which was the only game in town at that particular time, had to pay so much a year for a license. I feel that maybe it might be worthwhile looking into that when a satellite dealer sells a system to an individual, maybe there could be some kind of a royalty or fee structure whereby the person buying the satellite dish would pay X number of dollars, which would be their fee for the year to subscribe to all of the premium services or what have you. This would take care of the scramblers and everything else that we're seeing coming on the market, and it would be a benefit to the programmers too, that they don't have to invest billions of dollars in scrambling devices. I'd like to hear your feelings on that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Rick, why don't you discuss the Tim Worth situation, then both of us can handle the last question.
The chairman of the subcommittee on communications is Congressman Tim Worth. And Congressman Worth, in fact, was very helpful in our cause last year, because when we went into hearings on the cable bill, he agreed with then Congressman Al Gore, now Senator Gore, to allow our issue to be considered before the cable bill reached the floor for a vote. And that is how the viewing right amendments got attached to the cable bill. So in the legislative process, there is much room for cooperation and working together with congressmen or senators that may appear at some points to be adversaries or to represent a different point of view. Just as there are senators and congressmen who have been in the forefront of our issue, such as Senator Gore, Congressman Rose, Congressman Tozin, Congressman Gregg, Senator Goldwater. There have been other senators and congressmen who have been at the forefront of other issues that affect other industries, such as cable. We can't lay blame in any respect on Congressman Worth for championing some of those causes, which have been very important to the American public. We have to realize that notwithstanding that he was chairman last year and notwithstanding that he's chairman this year, we got our legislation passed. I think we can work together with Congressman Tim Worth, and we need to spend time in making sure that he understands what our issues are. And there are 435 members, and there aren't too many members of either the Senate or the House that have really been able to stand in the way of a groundswell of support for anything that's right in this country. And I don't think Congressman Worth is going to end up in that position, but we need to do some more homework. With respect to the other issue, an earlier caller had suggested that we have some kind of a fund. That fund would have to be very substantial. I don't think that it would be applicable to the pay TV movie services. We have, for example, HBO saying that the worth of its programming alone is $12.95 in the marketplace per month. The amount of tax that would have to be paid every year on the 50 channels of programming we had might be very substantial. It would be hard to arrive at, and I don't think would be a workable system in this country. On the other hand, your suggestion is very good in the sense of perhaps there can be a way to work out a mechanism for payment for some of the programs that don't have that very large incentive to scramble, such as the movie channels do.
Chuck?
Yes, I would just like to add to that we're clearly looking at those options of ways in which we can have a pool of money or dollars collected to pay for certain programming services. Again, we don't look at it as probably a way of handling the pay TV or pay movie, primarily pay movie programmers, but some of the basic cable programmers and superstations that do require costs to deliver those to us. There are ways in which we could have an unscrambled pool of money, royalty on equipment, monthly fees, or whatever we can do, and we are discussing it in our board meeting following Earth Station Day, and we're letting programmers know that we are interested in trying to find ways in which we can ensure they can receive appropriate payment. We have to keep in mind that these programmers are our existence. I mean, without the programs, there's no reason to be watching TV or having an Earth Station. So therefore, it's very important to us that the programmer get appropriate payment. But we emphasize the word appropriate and reasonable prior to the payment. I think we're ready for the next call. Hello?
Yes?
Tom?
Yes, that's me. How are you tonight?
Fine, how are you?
Good. I got a couple questions. The first one is about CBS scrambling their signal. Do they have equipment in place now to scramble, and aren't they opening up some legal avenues against them as far as being open for suit because they're discriminating against the home TVR owner?
I can answer the first half. Clearly they're prepared, and they are, if they're not scrambling today, they're ready to scramble. The equipment is in place. As far as any legal question, Rick, how do you feel about that?
I think that that a good argument could be made that the network, any network, that owns major broadcast facilities in this country has an obligation under the Communications Act to serve the public interest with those broadcast stations. and that by the virtue of the ownership of a network that is so predominant and so powerful, that those broadcast stations, which are licenses that are held in the public trust, that the earth station owners could make a very good argument before the FCC that the public trustees of those licensees, of those broadcast stations, have to act in the public interest. And it is not in the public interest to cut off millions of earth station users who can't reach the networks in any other way. A very strong argument. It is one that we may have to make in the near term at the FCC with respect to these licensees. We have already started a process of talking directly with the networks about this issue. I hope we can resolve it through those talks. They do have some legitimate concerns that we have recognized, and we told them that we recognize them. Their news gathering activities, the information that's going into the networks from their affiliates that is raw material that hasn't been edited yet. I think they have a legitimate concern there. And if they scramble that programming, need to protect it, need to protect against libel suits, for example, that's a legitimate business interest. But depriving people that are watching television now, that need to have their access to news, weather, and entertainment, doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think that we have many avenues to deal with this at the FCC and through the two pieces of legislation, the access bills in the House and in the Senate.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hello there.
How you doing today?
Fine, how are you? What's your question?
Okay, my question is, well, number one, thank you for putting the effort out to help us out. And I appreciate it. I know millions across the nation appreciate it too.
Thank you.
I bought a dish for $3,000, and I was trying to figure out how much I would save by getting a satellite dish compared to cable TV. Cable TV full service is $58 a month, which is kind of steep. Now, I cannot get every single station that, let's say like WOR, WTBS, WPIX. I cannot get that on cable. Why would they prevent me from getting a dish and just cutting the signal off after? That's what I want to know. I don't understand why they would just want to keep scrambling every station that comes up if I can't get it to start with.
Are you in a cable area?
Yes, I am.
All right. There's really one very simple reason. It's called fear of competition. Cable has enjoyed a monopoly for a number of years. When earth stations come in, people either sometimes stop subscribing to the cable, or those that never became cable subscribers sometimes buy an earth station. Cable operators value their subscribers at about $1,000 per subscriber on their balance sheets. Every time they lose one, they lose $1,000 on their balance sheets. Plus, they lose the monthly income. So, earth stations represent a competitive threat to cable operators. Cable operators believe that if they can control the programming, if they can keep earth stations out of the market, or even if they're in the market and become the pipeline by which you have to subscribe to a scrambled signal through your cable operator, then the cable operator is not going to lose any money. And that's the reason. It's fear of competition.
Thank you for the call. I believe, Bill, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hello, Bill. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I'm not prepared to be quite as magnanimous as the other people earlier this evening. I'd like to know, considering there are several million, or will be several million dish owners, particularly with, I don't really have a problem with HBO or the channels that are strictly for pay. I think they're entitled to some sort of compensation. On the other hand, consumer-oriented stations such as CBS and the super channels rely on advertising primarily for their income. And I would like to suggest, and it may have already been put forward tonight because I missed the first part of the show, but it strikes me that with the number of people that are involved in this thing now, that and I hope this isn't a dirty word, a boycott of particular products somewhere in the future strikes me as a very powerful weapon. These people, the one thing they understand is economics, and somewhere down the line, they stand to lose an awful lot of money, or their advertisers stand to lose an awful lot of money if indeed 2 or 3 million people decide to boycott the product.
I'm not sure exactly which products you're talking about. You may be talking about the advertising products. We're putting aside any legality questions, and there are many. There is a tremendous force out there that's much bigger than us, and that is 35 million cable subscribers. And when the cable systems that control those subscribers say to a cable news network or an ESPN, we want you to scramble that signal, and if you don't protect the signal, you may not find yourself on our systems anymore. And when it's a big cable operator with perhaps 3 million subscribers, which is just one cable operator with twice as many subscribers as we have Earth Station consumers in the country, it's a very powerful force because they're already subscribers and they're twice in number. If you take two of those, if you take the two largest cable operators, you've got an excess of 5 million just with those two. So when they speak with immediate clout and with immediate economic power, and they can affect the cash flow of the programmers to an extent, an immediate extent, with immediacy. That means now, much faster and in a much more influential way than we can. So I think the better course, I think we've got, as Taylor Howard said before, we've got a very strong message. And the message is we're right. We have a very vital technology. We have a technology that is the technology of the future. And we have a delivery system that makes sense. And we're offering a really good product to the American people. We're willing to pay for it. So we're doing everything right. We're not pirates. We've got good technology. We're providing diversity. We're fulfilling all the Communications Act goals. Let's go positive. That's how we've gotten where we are so far. 5 years ago when we first started this industry, they wanted to put us out of business. Bills in Congress every year. Get rid of those Earth stations. How did we win that? We were positive. Good technology. We're willing to pay a reasonable fee. That's how we've gotten where we are. And if we stay on that path, we will win this battle without having to get into negativism. And I think when you're dealing with the Congress, you're dealing with sensitive issues. Everybody's got congressmen. The cable operators do, the broadcasters do, the sports interests do, the motion picture people do. We're not the only one with congressmen. These are very tough issues. We have to be able to sell our case in a positive way. And I think we also have to be able to deal in the marketplace as well. And if you get in a negative campaign, in my view, you're not going to get anywhere. It just raises chaos and people get confused and the issues get muddled. And I'd like to see you join with us in trying it. Call your congressman, your senators, visit with your senator or congressman when they're back home. That's the best time to see them. It's a good time to see them in Washington. When they're back home, show them an Earth station. Let them understand the technology, and we'll get there. I'd like to add, too, is that the situation is sometimes more complex. You said you missed the first half of the program. WTBS, who are advertising supported, who wants broad distribution, they're not the ones that are going to scramble. It's the common carrier who is saying they're going to scramble. They're the ones that pick up the signal, transmit it by satellite, and sell it to cable operators. They're the ones who are going to scramble, not WTBS. Those common carriers do not benefit from increased advertising revenues to WTBS. They have to collect a fee. It costs about $1.5 million to transmit a superstation throughout the United States. Somehow, the $1.5 million has to be paid for, and the cost of the company operating it has to be paid for. So it's a little more complex than just saying we should boycott WTBS or one of the broadcasters who do scramble. Thank you for the call. I believe Tony is next.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Tony.
Good evening. I have a couple of concerns. I recently seen an advertisement or the way the video cipher tool would be working. My concern is that we're supposed to presume to purchase the decoders. My question is, should the unit malfunction or not work, who would be responsible for its repairs? Would me, the consumers, the individuals who purchase the decoder, be responsible? If that was the case, then it would seem that the cable companies would have that old saying, they have their cake and eat it. Because if you're a cable owner, subscribe to cable, if the unit malfunctions, they either replace it or come down and repair it. But on the other hand, if we are to absorb the cost of the decoder and the repairs, it doesn't seem that that would be fair to the consumer. I was wondering if that is the case. Have you gentlemen considered that in the fair market price? In other words, if we as consumers have to absorb the cost of a decoder, gamble that it will not malfunction, and if it does, have to replace it, that would be an awful high price considering the amount of money you're paying for the unit and having to pay a monthly fee of $12.95, which is pretty exorbitant right now, and that's my concern.
I'll make a comment or two on it first. You know, we already stated that Rick said earlier in the evening our concerns about the $12.95 price being an outrageous price compared to what the average price to a subscriber to cable who does not have these equipment purchases and investments. So we're already very concerned about that. We're very concerned about a price of $395 for a decoder. However, to answer your question, we can't give you any specifics because it will depend upon who you bought your decoder from. If you bought it from a satellite earth station dealer, I'm sure it'd be handled the way the rest of the equipment was handled. When you bought an equipment, whether it had warranty or servicing as part of the purchase price, would be dependent upon that particular dealer. And how cable operators are going to handle it, we do not know, and I think it would probably be up to the individual cable operators. To answer your question more specific, though, there would seem to be some relationship to the purchase of the equipment and the price you had to pay to get the programming. And that is something that we don't really have an answer to right now, and Rick, you may want to address it more, but it would seem to be at $12.95 they should probably give us the equipment. I think when you get down to a price that would mean to taking in consideration that we have invested in our own equipment, and if HBO was a $6 or $7 price, well, maybe that reduced price compared to subscriber to cable would justify us having to maintain our own equipment. So I don't think there's a simple answer for your problem. Rick, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think that one of the solutions, and one that we have urged upon MACOM and the other equipment suppliers that are going to produce the decoders, is that if they made the chipsets, that is the microprocessors, available to the manufacturers of the receiving equipment, these chipsets and the associated electronics could be built in to the receivers at a substantially lower price than what is being charged at retail for a set-top decoder. They could come out into the retail market at least a third the price, if not lower, than the price of a set-top decoder. And I think that would help ameliorate some of the concerns. Also, if there were competition in the marketplace, as Taylor Howard said before, in terms of decoding equipment, then you probably wouldn't have to worry about warranties, because if usually in almost any business, if there's more than one manufacturer, one of them's going to have a warranty and the other's going to have a warranty. But what you're saying is, look, here's a problem. This is one of many problems, and this problem is one of warranties. And what we say as an industry is there are so many of these problems. The price of the equipment, the unavailability of chipsets, the perhaps lack of competition in the manufacturing of equipment, the perhaps one standard of equipment versus 2 or 3 standards. There's so many open questions that we need this 2-year moratorium. We need Judd Gregg's bill, 1769. It says, give us 2 years to work this out, and then we can have a system perhaps that applies in a fair manner to earth station consumers, and in a fair manner not only to earth station consumers, but also gets rid of theft of service down the cable lines as well. Thank you for your question.
And I'm sorry to say we have run out of time for any more questions, but gentlemen, in the few minutes that we have left, do you have any final remarks for our audience tonight on Satellite Showtime?
Rick, go ahead and I'll say one last thing.
Well, I think that we've come a long way in this industry. We have fought the good fight for 5 years. Legislation was defeated by our industry that would have put us out of business in every year between 1980 and 1983. In 1984, we did it. We did a miracle. In a few months, we got a piece of legislation passed that said we are clearly a legitimate legal industry. We won a lawsuit in the same period that said we don't violate any laws, we are legal. Now we're going that extra mile. We've got some fabulous senators and congressmen who understand our issues, who want to help us. We've got to help ourselves. We've got to write our congressmen. We've got to write our senators. We've got to visit with them. And a good start would be to come to Satellite Earth Station Day. Be with your colleagues. Be with your friends. Help us win this battle for you. Only you can help yourself to really make it happen. I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you here. And if you can't be for any reason, please write your congressmen and senators. Thank you for being with us. Chuck?
I think I'm just going to repeat what Rick said. I think every day we want you to ask yourself the same questions you probably always ask yourself. Have you kissed your loved ones? Have you given them a hug? Have you done those things that's necessary in your life to go on and succeed? And one of those things now we want every day for you to think about, have you written your congressman, your senator? Not just once, but often. Have you contacted them? Have you called them? Have you made appointments? When they come to your district, do you see them? And importantly, if you possibly can you be here for Satellite Earth Station Day? Thank you for having us with you.
And thank you, Rick, Chuck, and our other people from space who are visiting tonight. Robin Neidhart, Bob Behar, and Taylor Howard. Special thanks to our corporate sponsors, Luxor North America, Caltronics Incorporated, and STV Magazine, without whom this program would not be possible. And soon, also, thanks to our corporate sponsors, there will be a repeat broadcast of Satellite Showtime. And Joe Kelch, will you tell us about that?
Right, I'll repeat what I said earlier, and that is basically this. The Satellite Showtime show will be shown on a morning segment coming soon to repeat the evening segment, which you have seen now for over a year on Tuesday evenings. I'd like to add after that one more thought. Thanks so much to you people who called, and we're sorry we couldn't get all the calls in. We have heard the phone repeatedly, and this is the sort of thing that we just love, and we hope to have more of these type of shows in the future.
And I'm sorry if you keep trying to call, it won't do any good because we're not accepting any more calls. But please be in touch with your congressman and with space and with us at Satellite Showtime. Good night. See you next week.